Night in Tokyo hums like a projector, flickering between grit and neon. Dr. Atsuko Chiba wears composure like a lab coat and armor. By daylight, she treats wounded minds with clinical precision and unsentimental kindness. By night, she slips into dreams as someone brighter, faster, freer. They call that someone Paprika, and the name tastes like mischief. Paprika laughs where Chiba won't, somersaults where Chiba stands still, teases truth out of nightmares. There's a device that makes this double life possible. It's small enough to lose and dangerous enough to change civilization. They named it the DC Mini, like a toy, because scientists always joke before history happens. It lets a therapist step into a patient's dream without sleeping. Its empathy as technology, psychotherapy as adventure, ethics as a tightrope. Then the prototypes go missing, and the tightrope frays. First come whispers, then a parade. A parade of refrigerators and frogs and porcelain dolls beating drums of nonsense. The kind of nonsense that eats rational thought like candy. Researchers at the Institute babble slogans and leap from windows smiling. Screens show dream logic at noon, and no one remembers pressing play. Chiba keeps calm because panic multiplies, but her pulse remembers math. She finds the inventor asleep on his desk, brilliant and childlike, equal parts genius and appetite. His name is Tokita, and he builds miracles with the posture of a kid in a pantry. He swears the DC Mini is unfinished, unsecured, irresistible. He's right on all counts, which does not help. Security wants culprits. Therapists want cures. Administrators want reputations to survive audits. Chiba wants patients who aren't dying of dreams. Paprika wants to poke the mystery in the ribs until it confesses. They're the same woman, but not always on the same page. A detective enters with a case and a shadow. He dreams a hallway chase filmed on grainy stock that feels like regret. He chases a murderer through curtains of cinema and wakes short of breath. His name is Kanakawa, and he hates that his pulse races for ghosts. Paprika lands in his dream like a grin and a parachute. She knows where doors hide in corridors that repeat. She treats fear like a set piece that can be rearranged. Kanakawa distrusts the trick, but follows the string. Elsewhere, monitors blink with borrowed footage no one shot. A scientist speaks in slogans he never learned. Another hears the parade from inside his coffee. Chiba's colleague Rumi, a former idol with a manager's caution, urges retreat. The Institute's chairman speaks of purity and danger with the same breath. He calls dreams sacred territory, a homeland that should not be colonized by gadgets. He's persuasive until persuasion sounds like prophecy. Paprika rolls her eyes at speeches, but Chiba hears the sirens under the rhetoric. The parade grows stranger, longer, louder. It marches through dreams that don't belong to it. It spills into waking rooms as if walls forgot their jobs. A doll smiles with too many teeth, then disappears into someone's syntax. Tokita calculates patchwork safeguards and eats another snack. Kanakawa pretends the case is ordinary and fails convincingly. Chiba keeps working while her reflection hesitates a beat too long. Paprika keeps dancing while the floor shifts a degree toward nightmare. The missing devices feel less stolen than invited. Whoever holds them knows how to open doors without knobs. The team checks logs, traces signals, follows static. Clues bloom like film frames stuck together by heat. In the dream field, Paprika tests gravity and it negotiates. She swings from streetlights that become tree branches that become hospital four poles. She coaxes the detective to chase less and notice more. He notices that the killer in his dream looks back like a mirror. He notices a director's chair with his name on it and feels complicated. Paprika isn't cruel. She just refuses to lie where truth can breathe. The Institute's corridors feel increasingly underwater. Voices echo with someone else's slang. The parade collects household gods and broken toys like a nation on the move. Chiba starts to suspect the culprit isn't outside the building. The building starts to agree. Floors creaking like secrets. Someone is editing people the way you edit movies. Cut here, rearrange there. Change meaning without changing facts. The city feels it, the way a theater feels a new print before the lights go down. Chiba tightens boundaries. Paprika loosens knots. Kanekawa brings his fear to the appointment like a weapon to be surrendered. Tokita stares at schematics like maps of guilt and possibility. Rumi watches the screens as if they were mirrors. The chairman moves like a sermon. The DC mini hums somewhere it should not be, and the hum sounds like a fuse. Dreams are supposed to be private. Now they're syndicated. Everyone is tuned to the same station, and the song is a marching band of junk. Paprika dives again, because drowning in the shallow end is still drowning. Chiba braces again, because the surface keeps cracking. The detective enters again, because the only exit is through. The parade rounds a corner none of them can see yet, and the city holds its breath like an audience before the reveal. Morning pretends to be normal and forgets to tell the billboards. The parade doesn't stop for schedules or sunlight. It learns to speak through new mouths and borrow new shoes. It steps into boardrooms and lullabies and leaves confetti of confusion. A lab tech recites shopping lists like scripture. An executive dreams while awakened signs forms in hieroglyphs. A doll the size of a building blinks and everyone forgets to question. Paprika threads between floats like a pickpocket with good intentions. She flips a banner and finds a clue stitched into the hem. Names become symbols. Symbols become suspects. In the waking world, Chiba draws lines that feel like chalk on a windy day. She locks down hardware and opens up to risk. Tokita calculates the overlap between innocence and negligence and doesn't love the result. Kanekawa, guided by Paprika's mischief, faces his chase for what it is. He isn't hunting a murderer only. He's hunting a memory that dressed as a case. He holds on as the set pieces fold and reveal the older film beneath. Fear loosens its tie and sits down to talk. Therapy, when it works, looks suspiciously like courage. Meanwhile, the DC Mini multiplies like rumors. Headsets that should be rare show up where they shouldn't. Someone wants every mind on the same channel. Not for healing, but for conquest. Dream Utopia is easier to sell when the price tag is hidden in fog. The chairman's language gains teeth. The parade's drums gain orders. Rumi's concern becomes a screenplay with too many drafts. Chiba feels Paprika in her bones, like a song she pretended not to like. Paprika feels Shiba's restraint like a seatbelt she sometimes needs. They are halves arguing toward wholeness while the city blurs. On screens, fish swim through traffic and nobody honks. On sidewalks, banners of supermarket mascots wave like national flags. The borders between sleep and day bend, then ripple, then tear. Kanekawa chooses not to run in his dream for the first time. He turns over the figure and sees the cut he made years ago. The case inside the case clicks shut with a quiet that sounds like relief. He wakes steadier, which is good, because the world outside needs anchors. The Institute becomes battleground and oracle. Chiba traces access logs and finds fingerprints shaped like intentions. Someone close wants dominion disguised as salvation. Someone believes dreams should swallow reality so no one has to wake alone. Paprika would rather wake messy than sleep perfect. The parade swells into a carnival of impossible physics. Buildings warp into paper. Streets curl like film strips heating in the gate. A giant doll opens its mouth, and the horizon slides inside. Paprika tumbles through wardrobes of identity and laughs to keep from screaming. Chiba watches her other self and admits the necessity of color. Tokita tries a rescue that involves both math and childish bravery. Kanekawa guards the door to reality like a bouncer with a soul. The chairman preaches absorption as mercy, ownership as care, silence as peace. The speech sounds like thunder, which is convincing until lightning speaks back. Paprika answers with improvisation, the enemy of tyranny. She slipped through banners, past mascots, under brass instruments the size of rooms. She pulls threads of dream and ties them to facts like kites. Identity becomes a rope bridge with missing planks, and she sprints anyway. Chiba steps onto the same bridge, recognizing that caution alone won't cross. Paprika notices the scientist under the hero cape and forgives the weight. Rumi stares into mirrors that refuse to be neutral. The city watches its own reflection in shop windows and wavers. The parade tries to crown itself king of meaning. Paprika counters with a grin that refuses crowns. She turns spectacle against itself, bending the rules of the stage. Kanekawa, finally at peace with the cut he never finished, lends his steadiness to the chaos. Tokita, more heart than armor, becomes the lever that moves an impossible hinge. Chiba and Paprika stop arguing and start harmonizing. They share breath, timing, instinct. One brings focus, the other brings flight. Together, they stitch a rip where reality spilled its guts. The parade roars, then falters, then sputters on its own confetti. Dreams don't die. They just stop pretending to be laws. The chairman's sermon meets the limit of consent. Rumi's gaze finds a truth too sharp to hold barehanded. Paprika reaches with playfulness that is also mercy. Chiba reaches with firmness that is also love. Between them, a human answer appears where a technological solution had failed. Not a shutdown, but a retuning. Not a victory lap, but a return of balance. Sirens fade back into city noise. Billboards, remember they are billboards. Monitors show programs nobody wrote, and now that feels ordinary again. Kanekawa buys a ticket to a film he's finally ready to finish. Tokita invents safeguards and cravings in the same afternoon and writes the safeguards down. Chiba goes to work with a quieter jaw. Paprika goes to play with a wiser grin. The DC Mini returns to being a tool instead of a throne. Dreams return to being wilderness instead of empire. But the border stays thinner, friendlier, more honest. Because the lesson wasn't to fear dreams. It was to respect their scale, their mischief, their refusal to be owned. Paprika waves from a reflection that isn't strictly a mirror. Chiba nods from a window that isn't strictly glass. Tokyo exhales, and the parade folds itself like a paper map. Billboards remember they're only billboards and stop preaching in dream tongue. Phones ring with human voices again, not marching bands of kitchenware. The DC Mini sits on a felt tray like a tamed spark. A lock clicks, but everyone hears that locks are only agreements. Chiba signs the incident report with a steadier hand than yesterday. Paprika doodles a smiley face in the margin and leaves it there on purpose. Kanekawa buys a ticket without stalling at the lobby poster. The theater is half empty and somehow perfect. He sits center row and lets the projector forgive him. The chase scene he never finished stops running and turns around. He doesn't blink. He doesn't apologize. He just watches until the reel becomes memory instead of wound. When the credits rise, he stays to the last name out of respect. Outside, rain starts, gentle and specific. Neon writes its cursive on puddles, and nobody corrects its spelling. Tokita eats a sandwich in 3 bites and writes 10 safeguards in 12 lines. He labels the last one, "Play Nice," because engineers are poets when they're honest. He keeps the prototype on his desk and keeps his promises louder. He is still a child when he laughs and still a genius when he worries. Rumi waters a window plant that believes in second acts. Her room is white, but the nurse knows to leave a box of crayons. Some nights, she dreams of a parade that refuses to march. It sits in a circle like neighbors and passes a bowl of fruit. She wakes with juice on her tongue and a calm she didn't borrow. The chairman delivers fewer sermons to the air. He speaks softly to a clock and listens when it ticks back. Sometimes that is enough. Chiba walks home past a shop window that behaves like a mirror. Paprika waves from the glass with the grin of a good-bad influence. They talk the way sisters talk when they're the same person. Chiba brings the seatbelt. Paprika brings the steering. They decide together who drives. It feels less like sharing and more like being whole. On a rooftop, a windsock dances like a flag that refuses borders. On a train, a child falls asleep mid-sentence and finishes the story in color. On a bridge, two strangers pause at the same railing and don't need to know why. Dreams keep their wildness, but they retire their uniforms. They come as visitors, not invaders. They leave souvenirs instead of wreckage. A stray cat watches an alley as if waiting for a parade that will never quite start. Paprika scratches its head, and it purrs like a small engine of forgiveness. Chiba checks the time and doesn't rush it. Work will be there in the morning. Wonder is here now. In a lab drawer, the DC Mini sleeps like a bright coin. Not a throne, not a weapon. A tool that behaves when hands do. Kanekawa walks past a poster for a kids' movie and does not flinch at the title. He buys a second ticket for later and doesn't explain to anyone. Healing looks ordinary from the outside and miraculous from the inside. Tokita sends Chiba a schematic with stickers in the margins. She writes back, approved, and also eats slower. He ignores the second part and grins at the first. Rumi asks the nurse for blue today instead of red. The sky obliges by staying. Paprika places 2 fingers on the lid and closes it like a joke. Both gestures mean love. They lock the lab. They unlock the night. Tokyo keeps all its promises, including the ones it never said out loud. Somewhere a door between worlds becomes a window between friends. Somewhere a child tells a grown-up the plot of their dream and the grown-up believes them. Somewhere a scientist presses save and means it. And if you listen closely, you can hear the parade practicing in the distance. Not to conquer. To celebrate Dot because the city learned the difference. Because the people did too. Because Paprika taught them to laugh while holding the line. Because Chiba taught them to hold the line without losing the laugh. The story bows. The audience stands. The projector clicks gentle as a heartbeat and waits for the next reel. When it spins up, we'll be ready. Eyes open. Locks honest. Dreams welcome. Reality. Trusted. Both names on the door. Atsuko. Chiba. Paprika. Please knock. Please enter. Please enjoy the show.